The Ranger Assessment Selection Program. You guys ever heard of that? I know some of you guys are entrepreneurs. Some of you guys, you're here for the military stories. Well, the Ranger Assessment Selection Program is a special operations selection. If you're a seven-figure or above leader, if you're a guy that wants to get into special operations, this video is going to be very important for you guys, okay? Because what I want to talk about is some of the selection criteria that they looked for in the Ranger Assessment Selection Program that I went through. RASP. I went to RASP 2. There's two types of selections for the Rangers, the RASP 1 and RASP 2. Okay, so I was at RASP 2. I was an officer. That's the course that I went to. But this is applicable for you guys that have businesses. This is applicable to you guys that are trying to get into the regiment. It's also applicable to you guys that see yourself, that know deep down that you're a leader in your household. Okay, and I'm specifically in today's video, I'm talking to the high achiever type. All right, and the reason I'm talking to you guys is because, well, one, I can relate to you guys, but you guys have a blind spot. You have this blind spot in your life. It causes you to achieve at a very high level, but it also holds you back tremendously. Okay, and what that blind spot is identifying your strengths and your weaknesses. Okay, a high achiever, a lot of times a high achiever goes out and achieves to basically prove their worth to themselves, right? They want to prove that they're good enough. They don't feel good enough. So they go out and they achieve to prove to themselves that they are as somebody. Now listen, you guys, you high achievers, you have strengths inside of you. And it's actually, finding your strengths is one of the hardest things for a high achiever to do. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about in this video, is discovering your strengths, your weaknesses. I'm sure you guys high achievers, you can list out all your weaknesses. You can sit here, we could go have a coffee, you can be like, well, here's all the areas that I'm weak. Now, there's obviously those high achiever types that have big egos. They don't think they're weak at anything, but I'm not talking to those ones. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, is help you guys get selected for your special operations assignment, which if it's your business, maybe it's being a more respected leader in your family. And I'm going to talk about the 75th Ranger Regiment when I share this story with you guys. All right. So for those of you guys that are new, Jeremiah Sullivan, I was a quitter in life, and I turned my whole life around by working on my mindset. I dropped out of college, joined the military, got around mentors, and became an infantry officer, Army Ranger in the 75th Ranger Regiment, then infantry commander. Decided to run 100 miles without training up for it. Did that. Decided after that it was time for me to get out of the military and pursue my purpose of bringing people up, helping them change their lives, help them become the best version of themselves, and share all the wisdom that I had gained through personal transformation and life success, and pass that on so others could benefit themselves in their life. Okay, so along my journey, guys, I went to one of the hardest things I did, most stressful thing that I did was apply, get selected, or get approved to go to the Ranger Assessment Selection Program. It took me 9 years just to apply to get into the 75th Ranger Regiment. Because I started off as an enlisted soldier, then I had to change directions, I had to become an officer, then I had to succeed in my career, and then I put in an application, and it was a crazy process. They say that like 1% of the military has their Ranger tab. 1% of 400,000 soldiers has their Ranger tab. Of that, there's even smaller percentage that go on and serve in the 75th Ranger Regiment. Of that, there's even a smaller percentage that are infantry officers. It's crazy. So it took me 9 years to apply. 2005 is when I came into the military, and I guess just shy of 9 years. In 2014 is when I applied and I went to selection. So when I got there, I was a nervous wreck, man. I was very, very nervous. So if you guys, business owners and entrepreneurs, and all you young bucks coming up in the military, if you're thinking about that next assignment, you're going to be nervous, right? The business owners are thinking about that next level. You're going to 8 figures, 9 figures, etc. You're going to be nervous about that push, right? You're going to feel like you can do it. You got the work ethic, but it's the self-doubt, it's the imposter syndrome, it's the fear of failure. It's all those things that fuck you guys up. Because that's what messed me up, And so here I was. I waited 9 years. I chased this vision that was in my heart, and I failed a ton along the way. But then I finally got a shot. I applied for the 75th Ranger Regiment. To my surprise, they approved my packet. They approved me to come to the course. That's how it works, right? So basically, to go to the Ranger Assessment Selection Program as an officer, you have to do your Ranger platoon leader, or excuse me, you have to do your infantry platoon leader time. So you have to do 1 year as a platoon leader at least, and you have to get top blocked, a top ranking, top evaluation. In other words, you have to be very highly competitive, and you have to be endorsed by basically your boss. Like, sure, I guess you could go if you weren't endorsed, but it's typically a requirement, right? Like, so you have to be very highly competitive, and I didn't even think that the Ranger Assessment Selection Program was going to approve my packet, but they did. I had a good endorsement from my company commander. I had a good endorsement from my battalion commander. I was top blocked in my company. I was top blocked in my battalion, and I went on and I went there. So I got there. Plus, I was extremely physically fit, and I had competed in the Army's Best Ranger competition, even though that was a failure for me, which I won't go into here. But I was on this track of growth, and I was really just living a bold, courageous life. So I get there. It's just under 30 days. Ranger Assessment Selection Program, RASP 2, was just under 30 days. I think we had like 30-something people in my class. 13 ended up passing. Of that 13, I think there was less than three or four officers, I think, that graduated. And there was only a couple of us. I think there was 4 officers that finished, and like 3 of us were infantry officers, and then there was one other logistician. But don't quote me on those numbers. So anyways, I go there, and at the end of the course, man, you go through this course, they do psych evaluations on you. So they have you do a personality test. I think we did the Myers-Briggs test, and then we did the Minnesota personality test. We did that one. There was like 3, 4, 5 different personality tests that we did. I remember it was like a whole day of personality tests. I was like, Jesus, this is crazy. And then they go into your background, your criminal background. They and then they even do like a little lie detector test. And I was sweating bullets when I did the lie detector test. I go in there and you meet with this like psych. He hooks you up, and I was like, he was asking me these questions. Have you ever used drugs before? And then he was like, what? No, he didn't even say that. He was like, when was the last time you used drugs? I was like, what? Like, what? And I'm like, what the fuck? Because he basically, they'll ask you questions that, like, incriminating questions, right? Like, when's the last time you used drugs? And you're just like, is that in my record? Oh my God. And you're trying to figure out whether you should tell the truth or not, or whether you should kind of like skirt the truth, or whether it's like, you're trying to figure out how to navigate that whole thing. And they want honest people, but they also want people that aren't going to be like incriminating themselves like every step of the way. Like, I saw guys go into RASP, and they just let everything out from their childhood. They were so stressed out. They spilled the beans on every little part of their life. None of it was like documented. None of it was even that big of a deal, but they just didn't handle stress well. So they overshared everything. They talked about, like, when I was a kid, I stole this from the candy store. And when I did this, I stole this from my mom. It was just like oversharing, right? And, so, you had situations like that. And you do these psych evals. And I remember being really nervous about that. They asked me tons of questions. They asked you the same type of criminal questions, like from different angles, like the drugs one, or I can't remember. Like, I think there was this fire one, if I remember right. They're like, do you enjoy looking at fire, or something like that? No, that was on the personality test. That question was on the personality test. I don't know. So the whole thing with the personality test was like, they're trying to make sure that you're not some sociopath, like serial killer, like, or sociopath. Because you got to think about people that are going to come into the special operations field, and even like you entrepreneurs, it takes a certain type of mentality for you guys to become business owners. Like, you guys are like sick, dude. Like, you guys are sick. What type of person loves high stress, high risk? What type of person like wants to make a big impact in the world? What type of person or wants a huge achievement in life? What type of person, like, you have to want massive significance. You have to want to make massive impact. You have to care a lot about yourself. You have to be a little bit egotistical to think that you can pull it all off. And like, if you have no morals, like, what type of person like would be gravitated towards that type of career field? Like, you could draw in a really dangerous person to becoming an entrepreneur, business owner, or an operator if you don't have any morals. So, basically in my mind, the RASP selection, they were vetting out people that were potential threats to the organization and liabilities. Like, if you went in there and you overshared your entire background of your life from childhood to where you're at now because of some stress, are you really like, you're kind of a liability for the organization? Because what's going to happen if you maybe get captured on an op, or like, they're looking for leaders that can stay calm and composed during stress. They're not looking for people that break down. So regardless of what happened in your past, can you actually keep yourself composed when you're stressed out? I think that was the point. That's just my opinion. I've never worked in the organization, in the RASP organization. But bringing this all together is that, during this process of the Ranger Assessment Selection Program, I watched guys I thought were way better than me not make it through. I watched guys that were more physically fit. I watched guys that were like way smarter, man, way smarter. I watched them not get selected. And at the time, I didn't really know why, and I think one of the biggest reasons why some of those guys didn't get selected is because they couldn't accurately self-assess. They couldn't determine their strengths, their weaknesses, and figure out, like, they had a lack of emotional intelligence, right, and a lack of self-awareness. In the Ranger Assessment Selection Program, one of the comments the instructors told us is that they were looking for people that could self-assess. They were looking for leaders that could get their strengths, get their weaknesses, and course correct, not just throughout their military career, but in the course itself as well. So we did this tactical shooting one day, and they had us go inside and clear these rooms, and we used training munitions. I was a nervous wreck because I hadn't shot in a while, and I was like, here I was at this course, and they were going to be watching me, evaluating me. I would go in this room, I'm going to shoot some targets, and they're going to critique me on what I did wrong, whether my weapon was in the wrong place, whether I went the wrong direction, and they were going to really just lay into you. So you went in and you did this training exercise where you went in, you shot these targets with the little team, and they scrutinized you, and you're supposed to, under that stress, course correct and improve upon the weaknesses that they gave you into the next iteration. So what did that look like? You go in once, you shoot, they give you a bunch of feedback. Then you go in again, you shoot, and hopefully you've improved upon that. If you didn't improve upon your weaknesses, they're gonna freaking make note of that. So they're looking for people that self-assess and course correct. So when I got into the board, the final exercise of RASP, which is basically going into an interview board, think like Fortune 500. You're gonna go get interviewed for this company. Well, they sit you down. They have your polygraph. They have your psych evals. They have all your performance, stats from the actual course itself, like the stuff that you did when you went and did the tactical shooting. They have all that stuff. Plus they have your peer evaluations, and then they grill you on a bunch of questions, which I'm not going to go into in this video. So one of the things that they ask before you go into the boardroom and get interviewed is they ask you to fill out a form and lay out your strengths and your weaknesses. And this is where you guys really need to pay attention. Okay, I drew a blank at first. They said, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? My weaknesses, I had so many things to write down. I'm like, well, I suck. I feel like I'm a shitty communicator. I feel like I'm, when I don't know, I have fear of failure. I feel like, I care too much to the point where I care about the soldiers so much that maybe I'll compromise on like where my heart will take over. I had just all these freaking weaknesses I would write down. And I'm like, I don't prepare enough for things sometimes. I'm not diligent enough with things sometimes. I don't follow through sometimes. I'm beating myself up, And I also am trying to, while I'm filling out this form, trying not to create a profile of myself that's all bad, right? You don't want to do that. I'm sharing with them what I think of myself. So I'm also trying to pull back a little bit to make them understand that I'm not really just constantly beating myself up inside of my head and I think I'm a piece of shit, right? I'm trying to pick the right weaknesses that I think are the most important. And then when it comes time to getting my strengths, I'm like, well, what am I good at? Everybody here is good. Every infantry officer is good. Think about this in business. Every business owner that's at 7 figures is generally pretty good, or in your industry. What makes you different against the peers at your level? What do you have? Today I'm a coach, right? So what makes me different to the other coaches in my field? Well, they're all generally the ones that are at my level, they're all relatively articulate. They're all pretty fit. They got a decent background in one area or another, right? Maybe it's not the military. Maybe they had they had a 10-year period where they did this thing and it was really hard and now people want to know how to do that. But what is it that separates? What are my strengths that make me unique as a coach against the peers that I have? Not against the world, but the peers that I have and some of the best people. What are my strengths? And I'm in my head, as a high achiever, I'm well, I don't have any. I'm nothing. I'm shit. You know, I can do so much better. That's how you guys think. I'm shit. I suck. That's how a high achiever thinks typically. I can do so much better. I have so much more potential inside of me. All these guys are better than me. So but I'm like, I'm not going to write that down on my strengths and weaknesses list, because that just shows them that I don't have any strengths, and that shows lack of confidence. That shows a lack of self-worth. So I start digging in, and I don't remember exactly the answers that I put down at the time, but I dug in and I put some answers that I thought made sense. Today, I was thinking about it before this video, and I'm like, what are my strengths against coaches today? I think I'm above average communicator. Like I'm an above average communicator for sure, especially for a guy that grew up shy, not really opening his mouth. But I would say the number one thing, that's not the thing that separates me, right? My consistency, I'm way better than a lot of these coaches at consistently posting online, consistently showing up for my people. I do that better than 99% of them. There's only one other guy that I think that does a better job, because he's been doing this longer. There's one other guy that shows up more consistently than me that I know of. Everybody else, I think I'm beating them. But what is it? What is my strength that's different than these other people, these other leaders in my field? And this is what you guys, I want you to ask yourself. What is your strength? What is it? So I spent some time even before this video, and I was like, okay, if I have to pick something, what do I do differently than everybody else? And this requires you to push your ego aside. It actually requires a little bit of humility, because it's actually humble for you. You're thinking humble about yourself. You're thinking humility is not thinking that you're less than. It's thinking that we're all equal. So when you think you're less than, you're actually talking down to yourself. So being humble is okay, I have some things that are pretty good about me, and I need to acknowledge them. That's what it is, in my opinion. So I said that my strength is that I have the ability to inspire like nobody else. Like a lot of these other coaches, what they can do is they can tell you what to do, right? A lot of people will follow these coaches, and they want to follow in the coach's footstep to become like those coaches. They want to become them. Jeremiah's strength is that you get around me and you want to become more of you. That's my strength. I don't know where I picked this up. I think it was from my leaders in the military, and I started working on it. But somewhere along the lines, I made it my mission to build the person into the best of them. And when people come to me, they may pick up on a couple of my little habits and routines and some of my disciplines and stuff like that, but really they get clear about what it looks like to become the best version of them. And then they become inspired, and they consistently grow, and they consistently change. Not all of them, okay? Because it's not coaching, and success coaching is difficult. Numbers are difficult, but I think I have a pretty good track record for sustained progress. And when the guys that I've worked with that really keep changing, holy shit! Like I got this one guy right now. You look at him 3 years ago, and I'm not working with him today, but he's a completely different person. But he became his best self. And that is my strength. My strength is that I make people the best them. I don't make people the best version of, I don't make people another version of me. And I think that's an incredible skill. That's an incredible strength. And so for me, every time I work with somebody, I'm working on that craft. How can I make you a better version of you? And then that over time will separate me from everybody else on the face of the planet as a coach. So as we close this video off, guys, I want you to spend some time today reflecting. What is your strength, especially you high achievers? I know I talk to you guys a lot about your weaknesses, but what makes you unique? What makes you the best, different than everybody else? And if you work that thing, it's going to be the thing that comes a little super easy to you, where it's almost like, I don't understand why people don't think like this. Your strength is going to be it's so easy. This is how you should do it. It's going to be an easy thing that you do effortlessly. And it might not even seem like a strength to you because it's so easy. But spend some time on that question today, guys, because that's where you're really going to thrive as a leader. And if you like this video, I know it's super long, but I had to do a longer video today. So drop a comment down below on whether you like this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And if you're courageous enough, drop down what you believe is your strength. Conquer all.